we're coming to you from New York Comic Con from the Newsarama Skybox, and I'm here with Kieron Gillen, who has a respite from the craziness at the con.
Yes, I come up here and look at the tiny people dancing below me and feed my Doctor Doom fantasies.
Oh, nice. Well, you have a busy convention because you have, of course, your Marvel work, but you also are really getting into indies. You know, part of this new craze of creators, top creators like yourself, going indie.
You're very kind. Yes, there's a lot of really great books happening across. I mean, I look at the people like my peers and friends and the stuff they're putting out and the stuff which I know about and hasn't been announced yet, and the stuff which is just about to drop. Obviously, I've read Pretty Deadly and I've read Black Science and all that kind of stuff. But an incredibly exciting time for me.
Well, you have a book. We'll talk about your indie work in a minute. Let's start off with your Marvel work because I think that's what most of our viewers are familiar with. So you have obviously Iron Man and then Young Avengers, which I'm really enjoying.
Thank you.
So what made you decide, what was your goal with the book? Because it's a very diverse book. You know, you're talking about a lot of different diverse in sexuality. And also Leah has been brought back. My favorite character from Journey into Mystery.
Basically, when we asked the Young Avengers, it was that kind of like, it was having to try to find a way to make the book work for us, because, you know, Young Avengers is the classic of the type. It's weirdly, in terms of mid-noughties superhero comics, it's quite a very classical Marvel comic. And I'm a bit, my own aesthetic isn't really that. You know, as much as I liked it, I was aware I could not write that. So I basically had to kind of reinvent it from the ground up, because, you know, if Marvel wanted me to do it, I had to find a way to make it work for me. Otherwise it'd be rubbish. So my idea was basically, you know, get a gang, get some of my favourite collaborators, and let's do this pretty much like we own it. I mean, we were talking about indie books earlier. A lot about Young Avengers feel is the idea that we kind of treat it like that. And, you know, we have a complete disregard of the idea that, oh, no, that it's not actually your characters. And, you know, we try lots of really genuinely weird stuff.
Well, it's very interesting in that way, and then it's a little bit like Hawkeye that Matt Fraction's doing, and then it's very experimental, and it almost does read like an indie comic. Is Marvel like excited about you guys doing this, or are they like begrudgingly letting you do it?
Every issue I'm amazed by the stuff we get away with. It's kind of like, that's what Lauren is an editor. She was my editor for most of Journey into Mystery, and some of the stuff I tried in Journey into Mystery was definitely pushing it a bit. And I thought, oh, she'll go with me. You know, she'll you know, at least I'll go on, Kieron, you can do it. But, you know, how to phrase this? Marvel like putting out good comics.
That's a good way to phrase it. I'm sure Marvel will appreciate that.
You know what I mean? As in, like, you know, editors like, you know, they like diversity in, you know, you're talking about diversity in the cast, but diversity in what Marvel release. If there's one of my favourite things about all the Marvel Now stuff is the books do have their own feel. You know, you compare them to, like, you know, Jason and Essad's 4 is astounding. It's one of the best 4 runs ever.
And a very different feel than your book, yeah.
Yes, and, you know, but the idea that these are all the Marvel universe, but they can have their own definitive voices. That's something for me which comes very across the Marvel line at the moment.
What's the voice of Young Avengers?
Slightly high-pitched, annoying, grating. I don't know, it is...
Flirty.
It is flirty. Basically, it's somebody in the corner of a nightclub trying to impress you and not doing a very good job. It's kind of both inspiring and humiliating. You know, it's very much the sound of being 18.
Well, what do you think of you've kind of taken your B storyline and made it your A storyline. You're really focusing on the relationships. You have, you know, the thing with Billy potentially manipulating the emotions of Teddy. Was that something that you came up with? So why did you want to go there?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's such a popular relationship with its fan base.
It was kind of, I was interested, how's the way of putting it? People talk about the classic Marvel soap opera, and if you look back in the defining voice of noughties superhero comics, it's been virginal, is a good way of putting it. The romance has been, these if they're there, they're very, I mean high school, but not even barely there. There's this kind of trace, and I wanted to kind of put the kind of the fertile emotional lives of the characters right at the fore, as in a lot of the plots, especially as we reach the the end of the season, we kind of think about the 15 issues as a season, how all the superhero battles are very much about the emotional term. Everything, like Mother being the arch villain, and she is speaking about a failing relationship with parents. The idea of trying to the problems of this transitional stage, and it's all metaphors. So basically, Young Avengers is compounded metaphor and compounded metaphor, and by bringing the kind of relationships to the foreground and then couching in superhero language, we get to illustrate it in a quite fun way. I mean, essentially. Leah's therapy group is very my tongue-in-cheek, my very, it's the League of Evil Axis. This is me completely doing a wink and a nod to, Brian.
Well, I thought it was interesting because, one of my favorite things in talking of relationships that fans like, Loki and Leia from Journey into Mystery. I loved them. I was so excited to see her come back. She's been aged up, but as we found out this over the convention that Loki's being aged up, is that going to be reflected in your comic?
I'm deliberately not talking about what has been announced of Loki in that kind of way. If you know, yes, what has been released, but I choose not to comment on it until the issue actually drops.
Okay,
and that's solely because I don't want to tip my hand as in what's actually happening.
That's good. So, but why bring Leia back? Was it for fans demanded? Was it always your plan?
Oh, it's always when I thought about Jones Mystery as a closed book. It was very much designed here as a statement. And Young Avengers is kind of a book set in the wider Marvel universe that picks up on some of the plot threads, but it's a different thing entirely. And one of the things you kind of see in the book, I kind of dig back into the characters' personal lives past to bring antagonists. Part of it was Mother, as I thought, Teddy's mum was introduced and killed in like 3 pages, and you kind of saw Ted. That struck me as a book. It was much more interesting, the kind of surrogate parents of the superheroes who inspired them. Or in fact, that's made actual by the Scarlet Witch turning out to be, their creator essentially. And I thought, no, I'm much more interested in the stuff which is personal to them and their own personal mythologies rather than the larger mythology of the Marvel universe.
They're not just the junior characters.
The kind of theme of the book is a lot about. I don't want to give away too much, but essentially becoming yourself. It's that kind of the idea of like 18 being a transitional age. The idea of, when you're a bit younger, you kind of have these hero figures and you kind of want to be them. And 18, sort of like Miss America, to a lesser degree, Marvel Boy. These are people who are kind of your own age, and they're kind of your hero. As in, wow, I wish I could be them. And then you was, I can be them. I'll not be them. I can be my own version of them. And for me, I wouldn't say it's then a complete attack on the concept of a legacy hero, but it's very much about it has to be more than that. It's not enough.
Totally.
It's not enough to want to be the Scarlet Witch. You have to be you have to be someone else.
And this
is still a team where we have a character called Hulkling, despite the fact he's nothing to do with the Hulk. And this speaks to their priorities, and I wanted to unpick that a bit. And one of the, personal mythology, Leia and Loki that's an interesting example of personal mythology. Using Oubliette, the girl who you fell in love with when he came to Earth, and Marvel Boy. That was an interesting way of bringing that back. And there's a variety of other ones in there working their way through it. I wanted to reach inwards into Young Avengers rather than, how do I phrase, parasitise off the Marvel universe. As in, I don't mean that in a bad way, but in that kind of way, rather than having Wolverine and Captain America show up, I wanted to immediately divorce them from that and have them stand on their own feet, just because it felt healthier. It felt more and that's what I want. It felt healthier and more emotionally interesting, and trying to find their own place, in the Marvel universe, rather than automatically assuming it has to be vis-a-vis their relationships with the icons, the aristocracy, if you will.
Well, speaking of icons, let's move over to Iron Man.
Yes.
What's it like writing a book that has such a big presence on screen?
Oh man, it's anytime you do a book that your mum knows, it's that kind of like when I started writing kind of X-Men, it was always I do fancy that Wolverine.
Is your mom excited that you're writing Iron Man?
Yes, and it's one that going through passport controls. At least you can say, "What do you do?" I write Iron Man. Oh, I know that.
Oh, that's great.
So you get hassled slightly less, which is nice.
Nice.
But really, he's just he is he's iconic, and it's not iconic. It's not really a word I particularly like. But he is so core to the idea of what Marvel is now, and the fact he's an awkward character. He's that mixture of arrogance, and you kind of like that. But you also know it's flawed. The flawed for me is a big part of the appeal.
Well, he's very flawed.
Yes.
Well, do you think Robert Downey Jr. when you're writing, or you can't let yourself do that?
A bit. I mean, you kind of you metabolise your Tony Stark, if you know what I mean. As in, eventually, because the Tony in the Marvel universe isn't quite the same as the one in the movie universe.
Yes, but they're getting closer.
However, what's the word? You want to write a book that's simultaneously. I mean, when you want to write a book that's simultaneously accessible for anyone who picks it up, who only knows the movies. However, while still entirely respectful to people who have been here forever. That's what you're trying to serve two masters, and I think that's fine. That's what people have been doing in Marvel Comics forever.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, a lot of it was like putting Tony through stuff which I thought was interesting, this big kind of existential fear about his own nature, And it's really hard to talk about Iron Man at the moment because obviously one more issue of Secret Origin, and there's still really, really big twists to come.
Oh,
and
exciting!
So,
Perfect.
Issue 17 is it's going to be wouldn't it be another interesting one?
Oh, good, excellent. So let's move on also to your independent work. So, as I said, a number of creators, top tier, you're moving into the independent world. What made you do that? Because obviously you're not wanting for work at the big, Marvel.
I'm an indie guy at heart. I mean, it's like I didn't. as much as I've loved writing for Marvel and I love writing this stuff, but it's not something I pursued. It's literally I was doing my indie work and they asked me to, have you interested in pitching for this story? And I went, yes. That sounds fun. And this kind of very rapidly became the point where I was doing a lot of work for Marvel, and it was fun as well. And the weird thing about the indie stuff that's coming out at the moment, in terms of Free and Mercury Heat, and even Uber, these are relatively old ideas. I think Free originally we wanted to happen like a couple of years back.
So these were like in your lockbox.
Yeah, a bit.
Right?
I mean, no, even the first issue of Uber was written in 2008.
Oh wow! So that's been around, but so you have new ones. You just debuted the 3.
Yeah, actually, in fact, no. Even Mercury Heat is a kind of like 3 or 4 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
The idea?
No, the actual first script. That was kind of.
Oh, so what happened? Did Marvel derail it?
No. The first 6 issues have been written. Actually, the thing with Mercury Heat is that we kind of announced it as the Heat like a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And there's been.
There was the Sandra Bullock, Melissa McCarthy movie, and you're like,
well, we changed the name in that way because I couldn't stand dealing with that question every time. But it was it was just artist teething issues would be a good way of putting it.
Oh, I see. Which is more of a problem in the indie world.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
it is. It's one of the things. But I mean, I'm very happy this book's coming out now. But it's kind of like this is work which I've been planning for quite a while, rather than a response to how things are. On the other hand, I have plans for interesting stuff next year.
Oh, you do?
Which I can't talk about. But it's like kind of the completely brand new stuff which is like come in the last 6 months. That's what I'm kind of most. That's what my next step is.
Well, comic books are very entrepreneurial. Do you find you have to be that far ahead of the game?
Oh, you just have to keep it interesting. It's all about ideas.
Where do you get new ideas? Do you ever find yourself tapped out? You're like, you know what? I'm done.
Yes. No, you don't. I give up. I'm going now. For me, it's a lot. I mean, a lot of the books I do are quite research heavy. I mean, obviously Uber is Free. It's about the Helot slave hunt.
So what's Mercury? The 3 is out now from Image, correct?
Yes, it's just sold out the first issue, which is very exciting.
Congratulations!
There's a new printing. So yes.
Oh my goodness! So you better get it. So what's it about?
It is basically me doing a story about the Helot slave hunts in Sparta, because basically Sparta, amongst other things, why were the Spartans such great warriors? Pretty much because all they did was train, and they had 10 people doing all their work, and they basically ran a terror state to keep these people completely subjugated, including stuff like the Cryptia, which is the idea of pretty much the idea is that they kind of just culled Sparta. They went down and culled Helots. Anyone looked a bit too healthy, and they ran as a terror state. I'm simplifying any historians, by the way. Trust me, I know what I'm saying.
Someone on there is like,
I think
Mr. Gillen.
I'll tell you, I've done so much research into Free. It's like I'm very much now the guy. No, I think you'll find the helmet in this film is wrong. That is from the wrong period.
Does that annoy you now? Do you find you can't watch this stuff? And
You can't. I mean, you've got to be able to turn it off. It's that kind of unaware. I'm okay, as in, but I am the boring guy who can lean over, and that's just being a bit of a show off.
So 3 is like in the vein of 300 and stuff like that.
It's kind of, it's basically, I mean, necessarily, what's the word? That's one way of phrasing it. It's kind of like an inversion of it. It's about,
That's
this
the
is
Hollywood
basically,
pitch, right?
Basically,
what's the Hollywood pitch?
3 Helot slaves, that are involved in the killing of an ephor, who is one of the leaders in Sparta, and forced to go on the run. The Spartan state, in a moment of complete paranoia, send the Hippias, who are the 300 basest warriors in Sparta, the king's guard, after them. So it's basically 3 people on the run from 300. It's an inversion of the Phonopoly myth. The idea, the Phonopoly was the 300 versus the million. I flip that and use that to look at the Spartan system as a whole. So it's Helots. It's about the Helots of those 3 lead characters, but it takes in the political paranoia and everything about Sparta. It's set about 100 years after Thermopylae. And it's kind of basically at the end of the Spartan system. This is kind of where being Spartan got them.
Beginning of the end.
This is slightly. It's after that Lucreta. I can never pronounce Lucreta. I'm sorry.
That's the beauty of comics. You don't have to pronounce anything.
Yes.
You just have to write it.
Basically, Thebes kicked their arse, and then Sparta's lost Messene, which is their half of their core area. And they're really incredibly ruined, really. And this is basically the period they've ruled. So it's kind of at the start of this period, they had about 8,000 Spartans who were available. At this sort of period, what I'm doing, about 800. And that is the period they ruled. And this says a lot about how Sparta works the system, and that's kind of what my story's about. It's about why the problems of Sparta as well, not just the fact that they kept.
It's like Sparta deconstructed.
Yeah. It's a bit. It's like
right?
and it's a bit class. There's a lot of stuff. The idea of an enormous amount of people supporting a smaller body. That's an idea that might resonate today.